everyone, and welcome to the American Scouser podcast. Another Monday night. We are back in action. All three of us over here. I am your host, as always, Timucin over here in Chicago. Weather forecast feels like November. I was just telling Angie when we are outside, I was like, this feels like a November day. Definitely doesn't feel like mid-January in Chicago over here. And I'm not complaining. I'm all here for it. But Bickler is back home with proper lighting. You can see him and his stash in all his glory. What's happening?
Yeah, I'm back. I'm back on the road next week, so I'm just catching a breather. It's freezing here, which means that it's dipped below 55. But yeah, no, it's 39 degrees tonight here, which is like enough to basically stop traffic in Wilmington, North Carolina. So yeah.
Oh, you know what? It's probably the same. I think we're like in 40s, so I consider that like a November day. But yeah, it's so relative. Gally, what's happening?
Yeah, same thing. Not going to complain about New England weather where you don't really need a jacket. Like you throw one in the car because you're like, it could get colder later. But when you walk outside, you're like, I really don't need a fucking jacket. And that's probably only because it was 5 degrees less than a week ago and you needed 3 jackets. So I'm just convincing myself. So it's probably smart I threw the thermal coat in the car.
Yeah, you got to pace yourself. I always like see these people like in September, October. I'm like, dude, if you're wearing all this now, you're going to be in trouble in December, January. You got to pace yourself and like go in like levels, the raincoats, kind of a jackets, hard ass jackets and all that kind of stuff. Why does Bickler look like Ozan is in good form over here? So we're starting right off the bat. So a lot to get to. Yet another week of weirdness for Liverpool followers and following this team. Ups and downs and a lot of question marks, a lot of drama in the background, in the foreground and stuff. Obviously, there was the game today, so we will talk a lot about that. So let's start with that. I think, on the back of after we talked last week, we were kind of afraid, even had some like loss predictions, right, for the Arsenal game. I think overall we were pleasantly surprised, but we will go back to that. For today's game, I guess, Gally, whatever we were talking this morning with Mateusz, whatever the result was going to be, wouldn't matter. Like you would be able to assign your like narrative to it. Because if we went out there and won 5-0, it was like, well, obviously it's Barnsley. If you go out there and kind of struggled, it was going to be a different thing. If you had like today's kind of game, it was going to be the same thing. So people would be able to fit their narrative. Aside from like the whole Szoboszlai thing, which I almost saw in a couple of other players too, we went really like with a strong squad into this, which I don't think any of us were expecting, to be honest with you. Well, this time last week, I know after the press conference we were, but what do you make of the performance as a whole in terms of play? I want to get to the Szoboszlai thing separately. So maybe I was like livid with that. And I know a couple of other people were. I'm actually I'm so livid about it that I'm almost amazed to see other perspectives of it. Maybe I'm overreacting, but just looking at the play alone, what did you take away from today?
There were some really bright spots. I thought there were some players who put in a good performance. I thought it was nice to see Rio get 70 minutes. I think when you see a guy go down, I think Slot said after the match, they believe it's cramp. It wasn't pull of the hamstring or the groin. I think that's why you worry about playing young kids 70 minutes at full pace speed against like full adults. I think it's also probably where the detractors would say, well, if he was playing more minutes this year, he wouldn't be cramping up in that spot. But I've watched Ekitike start 70% of the matches this year and still cramps on 70 minutes. So, Dan's wasn't available. They talked about it. And I mentioned this because he has a hairline fracture in his foot that is taking longer for him to heal from, which basically the sports science people say is because he was overtrained between the ages of 17 and 19. So I can understand in some levels why they're protecting Rio. But I thought Rio was bright. I thought he was good. I thought he added some things to it. I would have loved to have actually seen him playing with the striker. I would love to see Frimpong creating on the right-hand side and passing the ball to a striker. Because there were times, even Chiesa, you see Chiesa's strengths as in his hustle. You see his weaknesses as in his overall pace and graft. But I thought there were a few times where he looked up looking to pick someone out in the box and was like, how is there no one in the box? Like, and I just feel like this was a match where I really wish they had like a formidable number 9 on the pitch, because I thought Rio and Chiesa were creating some nice things from width. And we've been talking about getting more attacking play from wide areas and making crosses. And once again, I think there were crosses being made and nobody in the box. But the midfield was good. I thought McAllister put in 2 or 3 quiet, pretty good performances in a row, which is really great to see. And I thought Jones did his job coming back into the side. And we'll get to Soboslai. The goal is amazing. That will not paper over what I'm going to do the rest of this show.
Yeah, I mean, I thought it was like kind of like pathetic, to be honest with you. But yeah, we'll get to that. I want to kind of like initially focus on like we saw gameplay wise, and like yeah, you mentioned Rio and Chiesa. I do want to touch up on those because I think we saw why in some ways Bickler they are not starting. I mean, he went out of his way and said this is why Rio doesn't get a lot of minutes, because just imagine that this game he struggled with 70. Premier League is just like a lot more heavy duty. It goes back to what Gally's saying. I guess if he was getting 5 here, 10 there, maybe he would like build up those minutes, but then he can come back with the Dan's ordeal. I mean, he was already talking about giving 2 days a week off to Rio because of the same thing, because of what the sports scientists say and stuff. But if you look at the gameplay today, I felt like, yeah, we were like bright on the wings that you don't normally see. Even when Gakpo went back to his, like, out of the 10 positions he played today, when he went to the left wing, you could kind of see that he was like really good and he should probably be just out there. I thought it was good overall, aside from we showed that when we're not serious about defending, and I criticize us playing scared a little bit at times, but when we don't do that and there is no like a handbrake behind the midfield, we really leak a lot of counters. I mean, any other team, they almost punished us multiple times, but any other team would punish us multiple times today. Like, you can't do the same reckless attacking mode against Burnley.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think there's a lot there to unpack. I think the big thing is there's a tough time in transition. Like, right when you have like almost 80% possession and a half and your midfield is designed that way, I think the biggest thing that I see is when we don't have possession, the midfield doesn't change shape fast enough. So like there's just so much space. I also think it's just the whole Gakpo thing is so weird to me. I don't know if I've, Gally's like, I'd love to see us play with a real striker. I don't know if I've ever seen a frontline player that's 6'4" be so bad in the middle of the pitch, and it makes zero sense to me. We're talking about why isn't there more people in the box? It's like, he's 6'4". Why doesn't he just hang out there? Right? Like, I don't even like do the Nunes things and forget offsides and just stand there. Like, at least there's something, right? Like, so that's a little bit maddening. Yeah. I mean, I think the thing that I continue to struggle with is like the results outside of the second half versus Arsenal. I think the results aren't matching the performance. Like, unbeaten in however many is great, but like we all see, like, this is kind of like when we were winning 3 points and still struggling from a performance standpoint, right? And I think that's the frustrating thing for fans. And I think fans have a right to be frustrated in the fact that this doesn't look great. But I think the thing that we have to reconcile and be honest about, and I think we do a good job on this pod, is the fact that I think the majority of fans from Liverpool right now have have an expectation that's completely disconnected from the reality of the situation. And I think that's twofold. I think we had sustainable success for like 8 years after Jurgen came in. I think the second thing is Slot comes in and wins a championship off the back of that, which was like, pretty remarkable. And then we turn around and we go ahead and buy a bunch of big name players on top of that without really thinking about the players exiting and understanding that this whole thing would be a complete transition and that the depth had pretty much been shot on the team. And I think the depth piece is like a thing you can go back and forth because that's truly a hindsight conversation. We went into the summer, none of us were concerned about depth, right? Yep. You get a couple of ACLs later and then all of a sudden we have nobody, right? So I think for me, it's like, I just want to see these performances start to look more cohesive. I think we're getting there. And I think it starts with the Florian Wirtz conundrum. We said the elephant in the room is there a plan for him and what is it? And that's the thing nobody really wants to talk about. And this whole thing hinges on it. I think over the last 2 or 3 performances, you've really started to see a team build it around him. And I think it started with like the Jones connection, him and Jones playing together really nicely. And I think I think Hugo Ekitike is like the next level of that. Now we're seeing like we've got 51 goals scored this year. There's only one pairing that has more than one assist together. And it's Flo and him back and forth, both of those players. And I think if you're adding Jones to that, that's 3 of that 11. And we just need to continue to start modifying this in a way that's built around that.
Yeah, I mean, you can kind of tell, like going back to that. Yeah, I mean, that was one of the nice things you saw, I think, towards the end of the game, that you can kind of tell they have some kind of like a synergy going and they know where the other one is going to be with their give and takes. And I think that's when you see Ekitike's quality, I think, what he brings in terms of like him being able to create, to drop back and kind of like receive the ball and everything like that. I mean, look, games like this are always tough. I mean, if you've ever played a game against a much inferior opposition and they're all parked back there, if you've ever played in those games, sadly, usually I was on the other side, but whenever we were the dominant side, it's frustrating as hell because every shot you take bounces off of this, bounces off of that, because there's like literally like 15 bodies in the box overall. So it was always going to be tricky. We got the goals, you have the leads, and I think that's where my frustration comes from with the whole Szoboszlai giving the goal away thing. Is you were right on track. And actually, like Slot mentioned this, that, you know, like we talk about 2-0 and everybody blaming Slot and stuff, like, but it's some of the players doing like really stupid things. We talked about Konate sliding at an angle in the freaking Leeds game, inviting Leeds back into the game unnecessarily. And today he does that on a day where I think it looked like the Ekitike Veers thing was going to happen either way, because it happened exactly at 60. So I think that was kind of planned to give him the 30, like to get ready for the weekend. But I see Nioni coming in at 80, and I think he would have been here. He would have been in the game much earlier. I think not only it's like, we'll talk about the lack of professionalism that I see in it, but it affected how the rest of the game went. That game was done and dusted. It was going to be 3-0, 4-0, maybe 4-1. I would end it, but a lot more comfortably, Gally, where you could rotate, whereas you kind of like to let them linger around. And, you know, like we were full-blown attacking. I mean, there was one point where all our players were in the front half of their half. Not even like all in their half. Even Van Dijk and Konate was literally in the middle of their half of the pitch. So I was afraid like a counter or something like that happened. But that was probably the biggest problem, because this game was going to be done and dusted and you get ready for the weekend.
Yeah, and I mean, you make the comment about Nioni. It's not just him. I mean, Ramsey probably gets 20, 30 minutes in this match to get to see what he does. If Szoboszlai doesn't do that, and instead we get to see Dom playing right back, which we'll get to what I think the manager should have done or the head coach should have done and his mistakes and all this. But before we talk about the Szoboszlai thing, the only thing I want to touch on, because I think it's getting glossed over, because I think the Szoboszlai mistake is actually making people forget how good Frimpong's second goal was in the strike. Like, yeah, it's such a good job by Frimpong for all the people out there who's like, he's not good enough in the final third to be an attacker. He's still not a right back. He looked pretty goddamn good as a right back, and he looked pretty goddamn good scoring a goal in the attacking third. I think quietly, Frimpong was probably, in my opinion, was actually the best player on the pitch that started today. I think he has been undervalued and undercooked at what he's given this side over the last few weeks. And we may get to the Arsenal match if we have time, and we'll talk about the importance of Frimpong going forward, because without Bradley the rest of the year and Gomez being Gomez, like Frimpong has to play a lot of minutes, a lot more minutes than they ever expected him playing. But when it comes to the Szoboszlai thing, I was super disappointed. And I argued with people in Discord right up until I was preparing for this show that I was still disappointed and angry about it. I don't understand the excuse making. I don't understand anyone saying it was a mistake. Mistakes happen when you clear a ball and kick it off a teammate, or you just don't pick your head up and you kick it square to a player on the other side, or God forbid you're Steven Gerrard and you slip in the middle of the pitch. That's a mistake. That
Yeah.
shit that happens to any professional at any moment in a bad spot. What happened to him was calculated. He thought about what he did. And, you know, for all the people out there that are like, it wasn't that important, it wasn't that big a deal, I think the manager of Barnsley hit it spot on when he was like, yeah, I'm embarrassed for them on that moment. And I'm sad for us because it diminished our goal. Because he doesn't do that against City, Arsenal, or Real Madrid in the Champions League. And he doesn't. It was embarrassing. And if it were me, and we can talk about this or you can give your stance, if it were me, I would have went Dejan Lovren at Wembley and I would have yanked him with time left on the first half. And if not, I would have pulled him on 45 minutes. And I'm dead serious when I say this. With how well McAllister played, Jones and Gravenberch when he came on, I wouldn't start him against Burnley. I think you have to send messages to players inside teams. And I think this is a moment. And I think if he is the leader we're all making him out to be right now, and we give him all the credit with the quotes, then he will accept it as a great thing for this side. I do agree with Jamie in the Discord channel who said, my bet is the first thing he did was hold his hand up at halftime and then do it again at full time. Still not good enough for me because I think the coach has to lay that message to the rest of the side, especially the young players in this side. Like Nioni should have thought to himself, this is my chance to play now. And instead you took it away from me with your, I don't even know what it was.
Dude, that's the aggravating part to me because it doesn't even make sense. Like, it would be one thing like, oh, I see what you're trying to do there. And I couldn't remember it. I think somebody like reminded me that was the Bournemouth game where he did the same stupid thing. Mind you, this was all the way when we were attacking. He did an unnecessary back heel. We lost the ball. It was a counterattack. I think Semenyo was the one who scored that one. But this one, first of all, Mamardashvili is not even expecting the ball because it makes no sense. So he's almost like stepping away. Even if that, what I was looking at afterwards is, even if that back heel is successful and he doesn't trip over his own foot, you're throwing Mamardashvili under the bus because that guy is right in front of the goalie. So where is
I think he was trying to get it to Virgil. I think he was actually trying to get it back to the defender. Like, because Virgil is dropping back in.
It's almost like the player would follow him. And
if he's backheeling it there to Mamardashvili, he's also putting it on his right foot once again. So you son of a bitch, just stop this shit.
But I think, you know, aside from that, like I say, like, first of all, it's bad enough that we're speculating what the hell he was trying to do because it made no sense what the hell he was doing. This is the guy that we talked about and we bragged about him. We praised him for his like leadership. He's the captain of his national team. We said like he's the future captain and stuff like that. He like what he did is one thing. And I'm sure like he apologized at halftime and stuff. I really did not like his post-match, how he talked about it, because it wasn't the same way, like in terms of like how we talked about it then, like what he said in terms of like the apology and stuff. I just did not like how he approached that. He referred to it as what you did, a mistake. I don't consider that a mistake. And he does not doing on a big game. He does not do it anytime else. But having said that, before I pass to you, Bickler, listening to Slots and like how we talked about afterwards and stuff, I don't have a huge problem with how he's handling it because he made it pretty clear that a talk will be had and he wasn't happy about it. And he would only talk to like Soboslai about it without maybe affecting the team. I don't like you manage everybody different. Sometimes you might yank a player. Sometimes like you might like chew mud in front of everybody else. Sometimes you might just let it play out and say, okay, now with calmer heads, don't ever freaking do that again.
I mean, clearly, imagine if it was Kwanzaa.
I was just going to say, he undressed an 18
But that's why I said it's
kid.
different how you treat every player.
Yep.
It's just management.
Yeah,
Like,
I mean,
how
I
you
think the
manage
bottom of
players
the
are
line.
different.
Do I think we're overreacting? I don't. I mean, I think it's deeply unprofessional for somebody who's, at the status of he is in this club to do that in a cup match or any match really. I mean, he's going to have to eat it. I'll tell you what I like. I think my problem, and I think that we can get hung up in the semantics of the words and not understanding that like English is not his first language. I mean, he knows English obviously fluently. I think we're focusing on the word mistake a little bit differently. I don't think he necessarily meant it that way, but I do have a problem with him saying something like, I would say football happens and we move on. No, the fuck we don't move on. right? Like to me, and like, I guess this is my fear is like when we're watching this manager come after matches, I feel like when we have bad performances, he doesn't put a hand up and hold himself accountable at any level. And I feel like when I say that's a trickle down effect on like the players, sometimes I feel like I'm used to our players coming forth and taking accountability for something, and I don't see a whole lot of accountability externally from Dom. Now maybe he's doing it in the dressing room, but this comment doesn't do it for me.
Yeah, Derek says it's a huge overreaction. He's 25 years old, but he's a what I consider a very mature 25 years old, right? Like,
he's been playing top level football since he was 19 years old.
Now is not the 25 before either. I mean, before you kind of like looked at it as like 28 to 34 prime and stuff like that. Now
he's done like 3 World Cups by now.
He's the captain of his country.
I don't give him the like the age as an excuse. I think he will get a dressing down. And he might have gotten it a lot worse than what we're envisioning in the like during locker room. And here's another thing: like at halftime, you kind of look at your team's reaction to determine Slot's reaction. I think whatever Slot did, he was going to get face criticism on this one personally. And I think, you know, I kind of liked what he said in terms of what he wants to, like how he wants to address it. And I'm totally fine with that. And it doesn't have to be a benching. It doesn't have to be it doesn't have to be something we see, I think, Gally, for it to be like a disciplinary action. I used to get that in management. Like, you know, like if somebody screws up, I'm sure, like, you know, like somebody screws up and you're like, hey, I apologize, we'll handle it. But what are you going to do? That's none of your business. I'm going to do that. I'm going to do the disciplining. It doesn't have anything to do with you. I'm going to handle it. I kind of like that approach as opposed to kind of like letting the world know or letting the world see exactly what you're doing. Doesn't matter what message we get. The message that the player gets and the rest of the team gets is what's important.
100%, which is why us dopes don't mean anything. We give opinions and then we watch the match and see what plays out. And if he benches him, he benches him. If he plays him, he plays him. We'll see what based on the reaction and the response and whether or not we see it happen again. I don't think we will.
No.
But I didn't think I'd see it the first time. So when I watched that happen, I could see it play out. You could almost see him thinking about it as he slows down. All he has to do is keep dribbling the ball to the corner and then clear the ball up the field with his right foot. Now, I will say this. He does an amazing job tracking back, finding the runner, and making the run to defend the play. Because to your point earlier, we were a little high on the left-hand side. And for everybody who, and there's a few of them in this chat right now that love to slag the 21-year-old left back, the reason that the fullback or the reason that Szoboszlai got to make the mistake was because Andy Robertson was literally in the opponent's technical area, still trying to get back from the other side of the pitch. And he was pretty much outrun the entire match long. So anyone who questions why in big matches we're seeing Kirkez play, I think you actually saw in the first half today. He was being outrun by League One wingers because they just have too much pace. And if League One wingers have that much pace, so do the Premier League players. So to Dom's credit, he gets back, he gets himself in position, and he makes up for his teammate, which is a sign of leadership. His decision-making is just appalling. Like, there's no two ways around it. It's you said it best. It's an unprofessional act. If it's not unprofessional, then it's just derelict of duties. You pick what you want, but it's not a mistake because mistakes are like manageable. That wasn't manageable. That was contrived.
Yeah, a mistake is a mishit pass or not seeing somebody, whatever. You know, that's definitely not a mistake. And I'm sure he knows a mistake. Yeah, Bickler makes a good point. It could be like just kind of like lost in language, what he said in the post-match. I just didn't like how
I think that's fair.
He responded. And Derek is probably right. In the comments, he says Sobo has credit in the bank, which he does. But I think I almost got the sense that from the manager, when especially he referred to, we've done this before, I honestly don't think he was talking as much about the Konate one that I was talking about. I think it was more talking about the Szoboszlai one before. Like, it's almost, to me, it sounded more like he's done this before. He has to be smarter kind of thing. But I'm totally okay with, you know, Slot handling it the way he sees fit and the rest of the team sees fit. Yeah. I just feel like when I see something like that, I get angry because it does show unprofessionalism because you don't do it to another team. And I think more than that, it's like the situation the team is in right now. You are not just smashing everybody, winning every game by 5 and just like rolling it, where you can be like, let's go Harlem Globetrotters right now kind of a deal. This is a struggling team trying to get momentum, trying to get certain things right. I was going to ask you about that, Bickler, in terms of like the decision to start a lot of players. I kind of like that because this is a trophy you can win, number one. And number two, it felt like it's a good opportunity for some of these guys to, like a guy like Wirtz, for example, to watch it go in again. It's almost like basketball, like, like finally, like making those shots, scoring the goals, getting the assist and stuff like that. I felt like it would be a momentum builder. When you do something like that, you screw that up, number one. And I don't know, I always look at it as a player on the same team. Leave alone Slots. I would think a lot of his players, especially the back line, probably gave it to him a lot. But the dressing down probably came from the back four and the goalie, because you took away his clean sheet as well.
Yeah, I mean, I think outside looking in, going into the match, I think this is a manager who's looking for any sort of positive momentum that he can kind of like capture into this team, right? I don't know if Galley's like moving apartments or what, but anyway.
Yeah. Galley, I think moved. Yes.
Yeah,
left the building like Kale.
Good luck. Moving trucks out front. But yeah, I think like, I think they're looking for positive momentum. The other thing here is I think like, let's say the error never happens and this, like we're up 2-0. I think this thing could have very easily ended 5-6-0, and everybody feels a lot different walking away from this. I think even with 4 goals, you got goals from really key players, right? You essentially had all your Bundesliga new signings go in and make an impact, right? And I think at the end of the day, what you're wanting some recapture, some sort of positive momentum and rhythm, and B, get these guys to just get used to having the ball in the back of the net.
Oh God, Ozan says Galley is loosening Soboslai's handcuffs backstage. Yeah. Will you ever do that again? So we do go strong. The result is obviously good, and I think that, like you said initially, Galley, there's a lot of like positives to take away from it into the next game. But by the way, Red Rebellion says good morning. Well, good evening now. Well, we had it in the morning as well. But brain fart handball from Virgil. Yeah, see, I can't put that in a. There's a mistake. Okay, categories: mistake, dumb mistake, and what the fuck. This was more what the fuck for me. I think like the other one was like a serious mistake. The other one cost us 40 minutes of efforts in that game, says Scott. Like I said, I think it just affected the game flow. We would have been able to rotate more, and I think in a team that's trying to gain momentum, you want good performances with no blemishes. That's what builds momentum. And I thought that's why it was important to go out there and get like a 3-0, 4-0 win and walk away. But that's the question that I have. I know the first couple of minutes I can kind of excuse. You're going against Barnsley. Maybe you're not all in head-wise. You should be, but I can see how it can't be. Are you concerned, Gally, about how we were pretty susceptible in the back compared to what we have been in the 7-8 games, showing that we can't go all out? Because we were going all out offense, and every counter was kind of dangerous.
I don't disagree with that by any means, but we made 3 changes at the back. I mean, Frimpong hasn't played right back since he came back into the side. He's been primarily a winger. You start Robo, hasn't played much, right, at all. And you start Joe Gomez for the second time, I believe, all season long at center back. So, I can kind of see the differences there and what, the changes. And you have Mamardashvili in goal, which I still think was fine. Like, he's gotten a lot of stick at times. I know earlier when he had to have the run of games, people found reasons to fault him. I thought on the 2 times they made the really good shots, I thought the one save in the first half was really good where he pairs the ball away to the left. And it's a full stretch. You can see what he does there. I don't have as much of a problem with how we start it as I did with like halfway through the first half after we concede the 1 goal and then we give them a couple more chances. Because at 2-0, it looked like it was going to be 3, and then we're making 3 subs at half, and Neone gets 45, and Ramsey gets 30, and everybody gets to play. And I think you're right. Wirtz and Ekatike were coming in to get minutes in their legs, which was great. I would have liked to have seen minutes for Endo just purely because he actually made the bench, and it would have just been nice to see him get some minutes in his legs because he's probably going to have to play some minutes, even if they're the last 5, 10, 15 minutes of matches to close things out. Because I just don't think we're deep enough in the midfield. I think for all the talk about our deficiencies up top and at the back, I still think our midfield issues is our biggest issue because we want to play 5 of them from the start of every match. The problem is we only have 5 of them.
But I think we're playing 5 of them because we don't have any strikers either, to be fair.
But that's not going to change because this fan base and the manager, I actually believe, knows that his 5 midfielders give him a better path forward than playing Gakpo.
I mean, right now. But I'm just saying, like, in an ideal world, I don't think he starts all these midfielders.
No, but but so you're saying that Mo Salah walks back in and just starts every single match at right wing? Because if not, you still need to start.
I think you would have at least 2 out of your front line starting, I think.
But if two of those front 3 are starting, you're still starting at least 4 to 5 of those midfielders because we consider Wirtz one of the midfielders. So one of them is starting in the front 3 and the other 3 are starting in the midfield. That's still 4 of the 5. That feels I feel like that's the real area of need in this side, in my opinion. If you don't consider Frimpong an attacker, which I don't think you can once Bradley is out, I think you're really, really short in that midfield area personally. Like, I think that's what I've recognized now watching this side is that you need Jones and you want McAllister and Gravenberch plays every minute and Szoboszlai's, has to play and Wirtz is going to play. That probably means we're going to see less and less of that front 3 of Gakpo, Ekitike, and Salah when he comes back, in my opinion.
Probably. I would not fight that. I mean, here's another thing, though. But if you strengthen the back, a couple of people in the chat are saying, too, then you would go back to using probably Frimpong as a right winger or more attacking-minded, but you don't have a right back right now, so you had to almost play him at right back because you definitely don't want to start 3 out of your 3 center backs out there either. So there's definitely business to be done in January. But let's touch up on Thursday a little bit, just to package this up. Because I hate to throw Nordford under the bus, but this was my pet peeve this morning over here talking about Xavi. Because I would love us to be just supporting who's out there, who's working for the club, for the betterment of the club, and not just like trying to lure people in. I hope to God you guys don't have bosses trying to do the same thing to you guys. And I knew the moment the Xavi thing happened, I think Matush was talking about Discord that it was going to get out of whack and it's going to start. But going back to Thursday, Bickler, Slot did say he didn't think the performance was a whole lot better than other games, but it does hold, there's a quotient, and it does hold more value, I guess, because it is against Arsenal at the Emirates. How do you take that, like these last few games now? How do you kind of like see the progress?
I think that's either an incredibly ignorant statement on his part, or like it feels willfully ignorant to me because like that second half of the Arsenal match was essentially like one of the best halves of football that we've seen in totality this year. And it almost feels like to me that they were conserving energy. And then in the second half, he said, let's put the pedal down and go for it. It just was so different in terms of mindsets. I don't know.
Really? See, I mean, what do you think, Gally? I took it as it wasn't any different than, I agree with Slot. It wasn't any different than some of the other games we played. Because if you look at it, ultimately, there's not a shot on goal. So it's a lot of possession with no final product, similar to what we complain about at other games. But it's instead of coming against Leeds or Fulham or whatever, it's coming against Arsenal away.
Yeah, I think I'm right in between the two of you. I think I didn't see it as like a woefully negligent comment. I also think he was kind of taking the piss out of supporters, to be totally honest, in the media.
It just seems really disingenuous.
No, but I think that was by design, Paul, because I think what it was basically saying was, wait, this was one of the best. Now it's one of the best. You mean when we didn't have a shot on goal? And you mean boring football, right? Like that football where we secure points against sides that are better and higher in the table than us. That's the boring stuff that you guys don't like to watch. And I think it was more or less him saying, like, listen, we are in it. Like, we are all in it. And if you don't want to be in it with us, then fine. but like a point away at the Emirates is a really good point, and it's always a good point. And to be fair, a point away to Fulham felt like a good point in a title-winning season. Just didn't feel like a good point when you give up a goal and you're dying for 3 points the way we were a week before. And
to a guy who hasn't played in
in 2 years.
Yeah.
But 10 matches. Do you know how many times in Jurgen Klopp's tenure we went 10 matches unbeaten? 4. 8 years. 4. Like, that's a big run. And there's too many draws in it. Way too many draws in it. But those draws were losses in October and November when everyone was calling for the guy to get fired. And I do think they have found, and the injuries that we're going through right now are as bad of any injury crisis that anyone has been hit in all of England this whole season. Nobody else is down both their strikers for 3 matches straight, like top level strikers, and have their all-time, the leading goal scorer of the last 15 years at the club playing at AFCON right now. They've lost multiple defenders to season-long injuries now in Bradley and Leone. I think this is I think it's being understated now what's happening from a coaching standpoint, because I think he has turned a corner. I still don't think it's good enough, and it has to get better for him to keep his job long term. But all these people who think they're going to replace him this month or next month because some coach became available, a coach, by the way, who we still don't know if they ever even tried to interview, because as soon as they picked the other guy, this coach decided to announce to the world he wasn't interested in the Liverpool job, which kind of feels like, you're not in contention for the Liverpool job. Like, I told someone once that, I didn't want to go out on a date with Sydney Sweeney. That was right after she turned me down 150 straight days.
I like the fact that you kept going for 150 days, though. That's
I if you think you should know how many days it took me to get Kelly to go out with me, for Christ's sake.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like I'm extremely disappointed with people almost like semi hoping for a demise, and they can take it as a joke. They can sugarcoat it as it was a joke. They can sugarcoat it as no, it's just tongue in cheek. But there are a lot of fans who are back to the win-win situation where if we win, they celebrate. If we lose, they kind of somehow in their mind win because it helps their agenda and the cause of getting rid of slots, which I don't understand why they made this a cause over there after, I think all we want is getting the streak going. And I think going back to what you're saying, if a couple of those draws were a bit more wins, I think this would have gone away by now. I think the fact that there's a lot of draws and the brand of football and stuff, which I still call bullshit on that one, because it's not a whole lot different than last year. It was all fine and dandy and fun when we were winning. When we were drawing, people are getting bored. But we won a lot of games 1-0, 2-0. Nobody bat an eye last year, and now everybody's kind of boring.
No one would care right now if we were 1 point ahead of Arsenal with a bunch of 1-0 boring paint drying football matches. We're just irritated because we lost those matches in the manner in which we did to Forest, PSV, United, and City. And outside of City,
winning is fun. I mean, you would have fun if we were winning. But I guess here's my question before we move on to the Burnley game. Bickler, are we in a situation now that what is it going to take to kind of get out of this rut? Because I do feel there's a certain, and I'm not just talking, I just don't want to look at social media because I know it's the worst of the worst, but there are a lot of people who are almost, like I say, hoping for a demise so they can get their agenda take place. Have we kind of brought the club to a situation where nothing is going to make these people happy unless you fill in the blanks?
I think that if you saw this team go on a run where they were offensively scoring a lot of goals, I think people would feel better about it. I think it's just the offensive futility. And that's coupled with the fact that this side leaked so many goals or early mid-season. But I just think it's we're coming from heavy metal essential chaos, which was nonstop entertainment, right? We scored a lot, we conceded a lot. And I think it was just exciting. I think this is a different brand of football that's harder to watch. And when the goals aren't coming, I think that's when you really feel it. So I think if the performances start to line up and it's a little bit more exciting and there's goals, I think it'll be fine. I don't think it's ever going to be as entertaining as like Klopp football. I think it's, and I think that's good, right?
I was just going to say that's a positive.
I think that's good. I think the one thing that we talked about last year was how this brand of football is at least sustainable, right? Which, funny enough, everybody looks gassed as fuck this year. But anyway, I think the structure is there to implement this kind of football in a way that's sustainable, and you can build a club around this and not run these guys into the ground.
I think last year too, like you had you weren't leaking the goals, so you had the lead.
Right.
The system is really built on taking the lead and then letting everybody fall asleep and then walking away with 3 points, putting another three, another three, and you win the title. So that's interesting that you say goals, and I think you might have a point. I mean, what do you think, Gally? It does feel like getting these 2-1 wins and stuff, because people who are looking for the negative can always find the negative, even if it's a 2-1 win. So I feel like unless you go and really start blowing people out, which doesn't happen a lot in the Premier League, so I don't even understand the expectation. But I guess goal scoring comes into play, almost like people will be more satisfied if we won 4-2 as opposed to 2-1 or 2-0.
Yeah, I don't think you're wrong. I think people, because it's been stagnant at times this year and the goals, look, when people say I don't know what a Liverpool goal looks like, that's an indictment, because people believe like we have an identity as a club that transcends the players on the pitch or the coach in the technical area. Like they just expect that we're always free flowing and we never play a back three and you never park the bus and there's all this stuff. I mean, I heard it in the first half, right? We heard it last week in our Discord channels, how embarrassing of a performance it was in the first half against Arsenal, except for they were kind of preparing for a second half where they could try to compete and win, because the best chance of winning was to soak up some pressure and reserve some energy, because they knew they were going to be gassed, because Arsenal's side is, let's be real, Arsenal's side is however many players they had on the bench, 8. That's how many deeper they are than our side.
Yeah, like, I mean, look at the people they put in. We didn't even have anybody to put in. Yeah,
we didn't put a player in until Joe Gomez came in for a guy with a broken leg, and they literally put on match winners almost all match long.
Yep.
And they had more players on the bench, which is crazy.
Yeah, like Marino,
Marino and Kai Havertz are sitting on the bench. You're like,
they literally just don't sell players. It's like,
but I come back and I look at it and I think to myself, like, it is about performance, it is about the goals, and maybe this is like watching a little bit of the highlights and seeing how players are doing, seeing how we're starting to morph into things. Like Wirtz has quietly, I think, had 7 goal involvements in 5 matches. In his last 5 starts or last 5 appearances, he's had 7 goal involvements. Like, he is quietly finding his feet. He's quietly finding pockets of space to create goals. He's now scoring goals. He's taking goals. And I think that confidence, we will start to see it work more. I'm actually excited now for early February when Mo Salah is back from AFCON, because I'd like to see what a world of Wirtz, Ekitike, Mo Salah, and Szoboszlai working together, and seeing if now maybe Mo gets his finishing up where it wasn't at the beginning of the year, and some of those chances that Wirtz was creating for him become goals. Because that partnership we talk about with Wirtz and Jones, and it's undeniable, it's the closest partnership other than Kirkez he has. The person that Wirtz has the most completed passes to all year is Kirkez, the guy everyone loves to slag at every moment of all time. But Jones is right there with him on that left-hand side. I'd like to see that start to formulate with Ekitike more like we did today, and I'd really like to see that start to formulate with Mo, because if we're going to get to the places we want to get to, maybe winning an FA Cup, maybe going deep in the Champions League, and definitely securing a top 4 spot, Mo Salah has to be a key player between now and the end of the year. He just has to, whether it's from the bench, whether it's from starts, he has to be a big player for this side, in my opinion, for them to reach the goals they want to reach. And it's going to be really interesting to see how Slot makes that work.
Red Rebellion says the bad run, he had no choice but to slow things down. Others, we would be bleeding even more. Things are picking up again. You're my favorite, dude. You're my favorite. But no, here's another thing. I do want to answer this because Scotty does say, Tim, did Chiesa performance today change your mind? I mean, the Chiesa performance, honestly, the performances today, only for me, Bickler, reinforces that Slot is making the right decisions in terms of who's going out there with what we have available. I still do not understand the over the top Chiesa love. I never see anything that I'm like, yeah, how come he's not getting any minutes? Kind of a deal. Whereas even when Gakpo does positive things, people were getting on Gakpo in the Arsenal game, where we always complain about his defensive work rate. And the dude was constantly shadowing Timber like he was assigned to. So Kerkez can stay on, like Saka the entire freaking game. So we've kind of got into this mode where Chiesa runs onto the pitch and everybody's like, oh, look at him. And then doesn't matter what Gakpo does, he just gets slammed for stuff. I mean, do you see anything from these games recently that tells you, yeah, I do want to see this change in the squad still?
I think there's a lot of things here. I think when we were calling for Chiesa, it was months back when this side desperately needed some attacking, like flair and injection of excitement, and he was doing that when he was coming in. I think what we've settled on is that Chiesa is much more effective off the bench than he is starting a match, and I still hold to that. So I think you're still going to get that. I think Chiesa is a great player. I think he's better than you do. Personally, I think our evaluations are just different. I think that he's not a front three player in the Premier League. I think he needs to play in a sort of, I think he needs to play as an attacking mid, essentially. And I don't think the system allows for where he's best at. So I wouldn't start him in a match. No. But I think he's got a lot to give. I just don't think it's a good system for him. I think, there's something to be said about, if he does go back to a league like Italy or even La Liga, I think a league that's a little bit slower in buildup, I think it changes things for him. I think that you have to be so physical and have so much top line pace in the Premier League. And I don't think that suits him.
I mean, Ryan says, I'm not here for the record. I'm not saying like Case is a bad player. I just do not like understand the over the top love where like people are starting him over anybody and everybody.
I think they just want change. There was a period.
Yeah, I think it's probably just trying a different flavor. I order the same thing every time, kind of a deal. But I guess my question is, Ryan says I like Chiesa to come on the last 10 minutes, and you were talking about that too, Bickler, in terms of he's better when he comes in afterwards. Is that because it's Chiesa, or is that because it's the last?
I think the entire conversation,
Dan's there, it will be the same impact.
I think the entire conversation stems from the fact that we were desperate for goals, and Mo Salah didn't look anywhere near it when we were having this conversation originally. And I think that was just like, I think people were desperate for goals and change. And when he came in, he brought opportunity. Like he would just like was a chance magnet when he was coming in. I think the seasons are fluid, right? Like we have players that we're high on for 2 or 3 weeks. We have players that we take week to week. Insert Kanate and Gomez. Like we have there are players that yo-yo and there are players that go on runs. And I think Chiesa's kind of in this thing where he's been found out, where when he starts for 90 minutes, he looks out of place because I don't think the system really plays to his strengths, which, leads to a really interesting conversation. I know that we're going to talk about the starting lineup coming up versus Burnley. Gally made the comment like where you literally can't, now that Bradley's gone, you kind of have to play Frimpong at right back. I don't know that we're going to see that because I don't know. Like, to me, it's like, do you take the drop off at right back when you move Frimpong out of there for who plays there? Or do you take the drop off of starting K's up top versus a Frimpong? Like, I think you choose where you're going to have a drop off. And to me, like we talked about, like, to me, it almost makes sense that you're going to end up seeing the default idea of the manager as Szoboszlai as a utility knife at right back, and you have Frimpong up top. Like but
if he does that, honestly, I will roll onto the slot out train. Right? I'm dead serious.
I would just say be ready for
Szoboszlai at right back and he starts Frimpong on the right wing, I'm done. With the manager, he can go. He can go the next morning because the reasoning behind it is what? Because honestly, I think Szoboszlai has been at fault for goals constantly at right back, and no one wants to talk about it. It
goes back to what Bickler is saying, though. Yeah. The drop off in terms of your right back and your right wing.
No, but I actually think your drop off is larger having Soboslai at right back, because that is when Konate has been at the scene of the crimes. Has been when Soboslai was drifting out of space and walking into the middle of the field and tucking in and moving too far forward. Konate was hung out to dry for years by Trent. And we all said, well, he's here because of his pace and he can make up for it. You know what, though? He was making up for a defender. When you're making up for a midfielder, Soboslai does a better job. If I'm weighing the two options, I'd rather Frimpong at right back and Soboslai on the right wing, with Frimpong overlapping on the outside and trying to work that channel, rather than having Soboslai at right back. Because then you are starting my 4 to 5 midfield scenario, and we have no subs to come on and make changes. I am okay with not starting Chiesa. I'd start Soboslai if you need to on the right wing. I'd start Jones on one of the wings. If you had to, I'd give Rio a run on the right wing. But if you are that done with Chiesa, I'd try Rio on the right wing before I went to Frimpong up there, if you're not willing to play Ramsey or Gomez at right back. And maybe that is the answer.
I know that I've really got Galley on tilt when he starts talking about Jones up top. Like, I know that
you guys I know that we have
really scrambling here.
You know my stance there too. But I think we saw the Soboslai experiment at right back does not work. It doesn't work.
I'm with you. I'm just saying
it weakens 3 factions of the pitch playing Soboslai at right back, in my opinion.
I'm with you. I'm not sure the manager is. That's all.
My thing is, I mean, first of all,
that won't be the first time.
Convert to Slot out because Soboslai plays right back is a little obnoxious, but that's just me.
Well, no, you don't want to hear anyone criticize the manager if the manager makes that.
No,
decision.
So one roster squad change and you say manager out.
The point of it was hyperbole, Tim. But the
with the Slot outside in conversation, I wouldn't do hyperboles right now.
The internet's forever, man.
The point of the comment is that if you are I think the number one thing the Slot out brigade has been right about is his inability to stick with anything he's doing. And having a player start at right back, go to midfield, and go back to right back is absolutely on the manager.
But I think 100%. It goes back to what Bickler is saying. We talk about what he brings to the attacking in terms of, especially a team that's going to sit back. I understand what you're saying, but in a game like this, I am not totally against doing right wing with Frimpong, because really he has more of a threat to take you down to the line than Soboslai does. So,
but if he overlaps, couldn't he do
speeds, you're not going to get that from Soboslai. You're not going to get that from Chiesa, and that's why you can utilize them up top and kind of like have them flip-flop if you want, like throughout the game. But I do see the value of placing him. I don't like having Soboslai taken out of the midfield. I get that part of it, but freaking Frimpong as a right winger is pretty darn valuable right now against a team that's going to sit back.
I don't disagree, but I thought the whole point of buying him as a fullback was so when you play teams in a low block that you have basically 2 right wings and a fullback who can overlap. Right now. But it doesn't change who is overlapping who, in my opinion. And I just don't understand why you would be taking, I started the show by saying I wouldn't start Dom next week. So I'll stay on my vine that I would probably bench him against Burnley to start the match. But
and then some of him at right back at half.
No, probably is what would end up happening
when Gomez gets the early yellow card. Yeah,
I just don't understand the logic behind weakening arguably your midfield to move a guy you bought to basically be a right back to play against the low block. They bought that player to play against the low block because he would be in the attacking third
situation right now. I mean, you can't go by the scenario that drew in summer when the rest of it is not here.
You play the 2 up top, and you play more narrow, and you play Soboslai on the right, and you play Frimpong as the right fullback that overlaps on the right hand side. That to me doesn't feel that far off of what we were doing 2 weeks ago, and it was working great. I just personally, I think that moving him into that front line to try. If you have to do that to beat Burnley, then you're in a lot more trouble than we think. At home, by the way.
Well, I mean, when you're not beating a lot of people very easily, so it's not like you're having like a tricky time with Barnsley at times. So I know about if Burnley looks like an easy matchup. I just like when teams sits back because you're not probably playing Ramsey. If he didn't get any minutes today, he's definitely not getting it against the Premier League side. I don't think he's kind of gambling and having all his healthy center backs on the pitch at the same time. So I don't see that as a feasible scenario either. So I understand, like I say, why you guys are hesitant to take Szoboszlai out of the midfield, but I do see the value of keeping Frimpong on the right wing with the speed, because that's what we're really lacking right now is speed. And that's one thing that when you're defending Chiesa, when you're defending Szoboszlai, it's a bit easier to defend as a left back because he's not going to beat you with speed. I know sometimes Frimpong beats himself with his own speed and runs out of the pitch, but he gives you that threat of where is he going to go? Like, you got to cover behind you. And I kind of like that fact, especially when you want to widen the pitch. So you need that speed on the outside. So I'm not totally against it. So who are you guys playing in up top now? Give me a starting 11 real quick. Bickler, we'll start with you.
Gosh.
Kirk is the left back. I'll start for you. Van Dijk.
Yeah, Kirk has Van Dijk, Konate, right back. I feel like he's gonna do Dom. I hate it. I wouldn't do it. But I feel like he's gonna go there. I would do Frimpong personally. And I would figure out from there. I think midfield you're gonna see Wirtz, Gravenberch, Maka. And then up top, I think you're gonna see, I say Wirtz in the midfield.
Yes.
Yeah, you drop Jones.
I wouldn't drop Jones. I'd do Wirtz, Ekitike, and I would do probably Chiesa right.
Gakpo? No Gakpo?
Nope.
No Gakpo.
I don't like Gakpo outright. To me, it's a different experience and I don't love it. I'd almost exclusively use him left. Gakpo is such a conundrum for me because he does a lot of stuff that you want in a hold up player, but I want it in the center of the park. I don't want it on the fucking left. Like, it's just frustrating for me.
He's one of those guys, like, remember in the old, like, soccer manager games, like, you play the guy out of position, he drops a little bit.
Yes.
With him, it drops to, like, a quarter of the regular rate.
Exactly.
Like, you want to, like, go in and, like, change his actual home position so you can get something out of him.
Gally, you're starting 11 real quick.
Yeah, very similar. Ali, obviously, Kirk has Van Dijk, Konate. I'm going to stick with Frimpong, Gravenberch at the base. I think it's hard not to start McAllister coming off these last two matches because I think he's given you the best two performances he has all year, and you want him playing. So I'm going to stick with the idea of playing all those midfielders I don't want to play.
Ben Simmons is a phenomenal comp, by the way, for Gakpo.
That is a brilliant comp, actually.
For all the people
that is well done by Ozan. Ozan is on fire tonight, by the way.
For the international people, I apologize. But that's a phenomenal comp.
I'm gonna say it's Ekitike up top with some pack of five midfielders of Szoboszlai, Wirtz, Jones, McAllister, and Gravenberch, and then the back four that we expect with Frimpong at right back. And I think Frimpong still gets to play like a right wing almost the entire match because Burnley's gonna sit back like they did at home against us for 80% of the match. And if you remember, what really changed that match was bringing Frimpong and Rio on because they had so much pace that they ended up creating the handball, the Hannibal handball that led to the late Mo penalty. Can we all be honest though? Has anyone ever watched an AFCON match? I have not, but I watched it on FOTMob, and God, was I rooting for Egypt to lose the other day because I thought to myself, if Egypt lost, Mo might actually be back by the Burnley match. And there was a period where I thought he was going to AFCON and never coming back to this club. And now I'm counting down the seconds and minutes until he comes back because I actually want to see what the world looks like if him and Frimpong can make things work on the right-hand side together. Because I actually am really intrigued by what does, like when we talk about the Verts, Jones, Kirkes triangles that are creating on the left, I want to see that same thing with Soboslai, Mo, and Frimpong and what they might be able to build and how they might be able to create opportunities for Ekitike. But most importantly, it's Ekitike starting, maybe giving us 80 minutes, because right now he's the only guy that looks like he has 2 goals in him every single match.
Yeah, how does anybody make it through the AFCON tournament without a torn ACL? Have you seen those pitches?
Dude, it's rough.
It is wild, dude.
It's championship-like in terms
but have
of
you seen
levels.
Have you seen the craziness that happens in the crowd? Have you seen the Have you seen the Ghanaian supporter who shows up and stands like a statue? Not Ghanaian.
I don't think I've seen
I saw a photo.
Gambian. He literally stands there like this. He doesn't move, Paul, for 90 minutes. He literally is a statue standing on top of seats. I couldn't do that for longer than 10 minutes if somebody offered me life-changing. My
shit.
favorite thing, though, my favorite thing of every AFCON tournament is when they hold up the board that literally says like 7 minutes, and then the ref blows the whistle after 2.5 minutes. It happened.
I remember like Anand sending us that.
Well, no, it happened last year. Or the last AFCON, there was a match that
was it AFCON or was it like a qualifiers?
No, I'm pretty sure it was last official AFCON. They put the board up. It was against Senegal. It was a 0-0 draw, and they put the board up that there would be 6 minutes of extra time. Senegal scored, and the referee blew the final whistle. It was a minute and a half in.
I thought they were going to burn that place down, man.
It looked like it.
But anyone who is watching this knows the unfortunate part is why they make fun of the refs is they literally referee the event so that the home nation can win, because they have done everything they can to keep Morocco in this thing. Like, they have been terrible.
Oh, I have not watched a lot of it, to be honest.
And it's unfortunate. It's like kind of like unfortunate and sad, because you almost don't want to do the thing that mainstream media does by not taking it seriously, because then you get called out for not taking it seriously because it's not Europe and it's not on our calendar and it's in, and it's a tournament in Africa. And that's not why. If I would call this out like I would the Gold Cup, because it's about as much of an international competition as the Gold Cup.
Yeah, pretty much. And that's where I'm at. Yeah, that's a good analogy, actually. Scotty says, what position do I play? Right now, I'm really carving myself a permanent spot as the snacking fat bastard. But in the good old days, I was a center back. I was actually a sweeper back in the day. So
you just lumped yourself in with the family dogs there, Tim.
I was just gonna say you did. You did just basically you aged yourself twice. You're like, I'm a little overweight. I like snacks and I'm looking for goals, like the pups. And 2, I
just figured out how I found this.
I was a sweeper, so clearly I'm over the age of 50. If you know what.
Yeah, that's another thing, by the way. After I played it, they were like, "Yeah, this position is a little overrated. We should just do 2 center back and get rid of these sweepers over here." Okay, yeah, drum roll for him it is. Okay, score predictions on the way out. Bickler starts.
I'm going to get back to the old slot special, 2-0.
Galley.
I like that one. I'm going to go 3-1. I think Verts and Ekitike both get on the score sheet again. Unfortunately for us, I do think we concede. Not sure where. Not sure if it's first or second or third. But I do think we concede. It probably gets shaky at a point or two. But
hopefully
Burnley's really bad, man. Really bad.
I'm going with a 3-0. I did nail, by the way, for those watching this morning knows, today's
you did get today's score right.
4-1, dead on. So that happens once a year. So my 3-0 will definitely be wrong. But I'm going with the 3-0 as well. Scott says Timmy Beckenbauer. Yeah, Beckenbauer wishes. But yeah, that's a different story. But okay. 1-0 says Ozan. Yeah, I think we want some wins and 3 points over here to shake these clouds off. I mean, looking at what's going on around the league with people around us, really, if you can get a semi-consistency going, and let's see what we do in January. We didn't get to talk about that much, but I'm hoping something happens, knowing our deficiencies right now squad-wise, but that remains to be seen. But we'll be back. I'll be back tomorrow, actually, with the panel show tomorrow night, 8 o'clock Central, 9 o'clock Eastern. So do tune in for that. A lot to talk about in this freaking league. But have a great week, everybody, and we'll see you guys soon. Take care.